Toyota pretty much own the mid-size SUV hybrid market with the RAV4, but there is an alternative that you don't have to wait 12 months for. Welcome to Four Wheels and a Seat, where each week I help you make a more informed decision about what your new car might be. To make sure you don't miss one, hit subscribe down below. Today we're going to have a look at the Haval H6 Ultra Hybrid. When I reviewed the Haval Jolion a few weeks ago, I said it probably wasn't the best car you could buy despite being fantastic value. And boy, did I cop a roasting from the Haval fan club. Who knew that there was such a big community of devoted Haval fans who raced to tell me how wrong I was. Look, I stand by my review, but the good news is that the H6 is a much better car, although it does have a few quirks. For starters, the front of the H6 Hybrid seems to have borrowed a number of design elements from other cars. These headlights remind me of an Audi. The way the grille melds into the front fascia here is pure Peugeot. In fact, the grille itself has a touch of MG about it. But you know what? All of those elements together in this car actually work really well, and it's a good look. It looks good in profile too, although there is just maybe a touch too much chrome for my personal taste. And look, to be honest, these 19-inch wheels don't look as good as the smaller 18s that you get on the lower specs of the H6. I also like this window design here, just sort of angled up slightly towards the rear end. There's no mistaking this car for anything other than a Haval with this giant badge here at the back. It's funny, it's the exact opposite of what Mitsubishi used to do back in the 90s when they made their logos so small you could barely see them. You'd have to go hunting for them on the car, but here you can see this car is loudly and proudly a Haval. The LEDs look good back here with a nice LED strip joining them together. There's a kick sensor under the car here to open the boot, which isn't going to work for me right now, but I'll open it the old-fashioned way by pushing the button. Powered tailgate, which is good. 600-litre storage space back here. We've got a cargo blind up on top. Knock down the rear seats and you buy yourself another 900 litres of space. The H6's hybrid powertrain is interesting because here we've got a 1.5 litre four-cylinder petrol engine connected to an electric motor that Haval says produces a combined power output of 179 kilowatts and 530 newton meters of torque, which is pretty much more than double what you get in the RAV4 Hybrid. I would have thought that driving that much torque through these front wheels, and it is a front-wheel drive car, would spin the rubber right off the wheels. The H6's interior looks really good. There's a nice mixture of materials with some soft touch rubbery plastic up on top here. We've got some leather that's a little bit firm, but it is nicely stitched, and a nice lighting detail here on the passenger side, which looks really, really good at night. And we've got a lot of piano black here in the middle with a few sharp edges where the two types of plastic meet each other. They just haven't been quite finished as nicely as they could have been. But look, overall, the design looks pretty good. The center console screen, nice and big at 12 inches. The software, definitely an improvement on the Jolion. Thank you to all of those people who screamed at me in the Jolion review for not being able to find the volume controls by treating this like some sort of dating app and not swiping right. So I tried that here, and guess what? You can actually find volume controls. If only I'd looked for them. The software itself works really well. There's no internal navigation and there's no digital radio, but there is wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The rest of the functions in the system, look, it does pretty much everything. There's not a lot of physical buttons in here. They've actually put a lot of usability into this system, which means you do have to go through digging through menus to find some basic functions, but it's reasonably well laid out, and I do like the font that Haval use. It's Micro Gamma, the same that I use on this channel, so it does look good. A couple of the English translations aren't really grammatically correct. They're a little bit wordy, but that's something that Haval will hopefully improve on in the years to come. Underneath that, the air vents and a couple of shortcut buttons here for the air conditioning, hazard lights, the parking cameras. We've got wireless phone charging in a tray underneath that. Lots of room for nice big phones. A little pop-up cup holder here, room for 2 cups, and a little storage cubby just there. This rotary dial for the gear changing is great because you don't have to look at it to use it. You can just swipe it as far to the left as you like and you're in reverse, and then just throw it back to the right and you're in drive. It's just a really simple one to use. Park in the middle, park brake there, and then we've got a quite a good size bin here actually. There's a lot of room in here with a nice soft leather lid. Head-up display on the windshield looks good. Then we've got the instrument cluster here, which again seems to have been inspired by Peugeot, just the way that it's a smaller screen and it's got no surround, it's just sort of floating there. It's about a 10-inch screen, I think, haven't measured it. There's a couple of different design layouts you can use, one of which actually shows you the earth rotating while you drive, which is a really cool thing. One interesting point though, this car doesn't actually have a tacho, so you can't actually ever see how much your engine is revving. Instead, they have a power dial, which shows the total amount of power from the petrol or electric engine, whichever one's running at the time, and it shows it as a percentage. So it's always kind of jumping up to these huge numbers really quickly and then going into minus when the battery is charging. The steering wheel is okay, it's a little bit thin. I would have liked something a bit thicker with maybe a couple of notches there for your thumbs. There's no paddle shifters, but we do have audio controls and controls for this digital instrument cluster here, and a separate stalk like you find on an Audi to run the adaptive cruise control. And now for what is genuinely my first time in the back seat of the Haval H6. And apart from the headrest digging into my lower back, which we'll just raise up, it's very comfortable. Yeah, this is good. Lots of leg room. I'm behind my own seating position. I'm 190 centimeters tall, nowhere near the seat in front. Loads of foot room too. Beautiful view through the panoramic sunroof. The seat's nice and comfortable. This is really good. We've got two USB-A ports back here in the center and a couple of air vents for the air conditioning, although there is no rear zone of climate control, but that's all right. And it just feels actually quite premium back here. The armrest is nice and comfortable. We've got a bit of piano black here on the arm too. Nice tinted windows, not allowing too much heat in, and an armrest with cup holders. So, you know what? Kids on a road trip would be pretty happy back here, so long as they've got an adapter for the USB-A ports, they'll be fine. Oh, I don't know if you heard that or not, but there was a little bit of wheel spin there. There is a lot of torque going to those front wheels. Whether it's 500 Newton meters or not, I don't know, but it is torquey. But otherwise, it is actually a very refined cabin. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly when you're switching from the petrol engine to the electric motor. The only way to really tell for sure is that the little EV light comes on the instrument cluster. So the two of them together actually work very quietly and very smoothly. The ride, however, is not the smoothest. It is a little bit on the bouncy side. There's a bit of body roll when you're going around corners at speed, and if you go over a speed hump at anything other than a glacial pace, it makes a bit of a noise. You know, you can sort of hear the suspension banging and everything just gets a little bit unsettled. In fact, at one point, I think I actually might have even got a little bit of air off a speed hump, and believe me, I was not traveling all that fast, but it did feel like the wheels were actually losing contact with the road briefly. As we go onto the freeway here and flick into sport mode, here we go. Accelerating hard like that, it just doesn't feel as confident as some other cars I've driven. It just gets, the front end is kind of lifting up a little bit and it just feels a bit unsettled. Okay, let's see how easy it is to turn on the adaptive cruise control. We've got our stalk down here that's similar to an Audi one. Flick that forward to engage the system. Oh, and I think it's on. Yep, there we go. That's pretty good. That was easy. On the screen in front of me and on the head-up display, I've now got images of the cars in front of me. Pretty much all the cars look like Havals and the utes look like trucks. And you can see the lines in the road here on the screen, and it's just interesting because it's kind of showing me where I'm sitting in the lane, and generally speaking I seem to drift more to the right hand side rather than the middle, because if I go any further to the left it feels like I'm way too far over. We've got blind spot monitoring, which shines very brightly in the wing mirrors, so it's very hard to miss it when there is a car in your blind spot. And in terms of safety equipment, it's all here and it all seems to work really well. So in terms of drive modes, we've got normal, sport, snow and eco, and there is also hill descent control just over here on my right hand side. Now it's quite a sunny day today. It's not overly hot, but the panoramic sunroof does warm up the interior quite quickly, and the air conditioning just isn't quite as strong as the one I've encountered in, the Mitsubishis I've been driving lately. That is really, really good aircon. This one just isn't quite as strong. So as I mentioned before, it is a torquey engine, and that's really good when you're on the freeway and you need to kind of duck and weave and get out of the way or get into a space in traffic quickly, because you can put your foot down and there's no lag. The electric motor and the petrol engine combine together to provide so much power, and it actually makes this feel very zippy. The steering feels good. You can actually adjust the steering mode. There's comfort, light and sport. I like sport, it has a good feel to it and it feels nice and direct. The other modes, not so great. In terms of build quality, look, it feels pretty good. I mean, it's hard to say. I've only been driving this car for a week. I'd need to have it for several months to really know. But so far, first impressions, everything feels pretty solid and well made. It is so close to being perfect. It is really close to it. I think the next generation of the H6 will probably be the one that really takes Haval over the top and starts them on the firm trajectory of becoming the next Kia, because it really does feel like they've done everything right with this car so far. The Jolyon needs a bit more work, but the H6 is really good. At $46,000, the Haval H6 Ultra Hybrid is unbeatable value. You will not find a better equipped mid-size SUV for the money. But with over 25 years in the marketplace, the Toyota RAV4 is a known entity and its resale value is very strong. And I'm not entirely sure you could say the same thing about the Haval. But as I said at the top, you can probably find one of these to drive away with today, or wait up to 12 months for your RAV4 to arrive that won't have the same high level of equipment. What should you do? Well, take them both for a test drive, of course.